So we've published 2 collections of yours alongside, I think you've been in pretty much every anthology that has poetry in it, because you're very obliging, and whenever I put out a call you say, I happen to have something on that, how would this fit? And I go, yes, thank you, and that's that. But very much, I know I've said this to you before when you go ha about it, but I did actually start Arachne Press thinking maybe I could get Kate to let me publish something, and lo, she did. Yeah, that was one of the ambitions, apart from had to have a good time and have lots of people to talk to, and it's kind of turned out like that. So,
well, I think that's wonderful, and although I go ha, and you know, part of me definitely feels ha. I know that you have more or less faithfully turned up at every accessible reading that I've done in England, and I greatly appreciate it. And also, I've realised I'm a lazy old cow, basically, and I don't do enough with trying to get my poetry known. And I can't see that is going to happen in the near future either. So I'm very grateful that you've taken over the job for me, and that you're
waving the flag in the corner. Yeah.
waving the flag in the corner, yes. Spinning the web, you could say.
Yeah, yeah. The first one, the Don't Touch Garden, which is extreme. I mean, they're both very personal books, very autobiographical, but covering much wider issues in the process. Because the first one is very much about adoption and growing up during World War II, and somewhat unique position of being a child who stayed in London.
Yes.
Which is an interesting thing in its own right. And I think what I find so very gratifying about your poetry is this could so easily be a misery memoir. It could have been, oh, poor me, adopted, you know, suspicious aunties being mean to me, God, I was here through the Blitz, you know, and, but it's funny and it's charming and it's wide ranging and it's sort of engaging with what else was going on and who else it was happening to. And I love the way you give a voice to everybody involved. You know, there's poems from your father's point of view, there's poems from your mother's point of view, there's poems from your birth mother's point of view, there's the midwife gets a look in, you know. And I love that because it really explores everything and sort of it's though, yeah, you are central to it, but it's absolutely not really about you, despite the absolute details that are in there, like the 2 and sixpence and
that's very nice that you say that, because I was looking at it, you know, as a kind of preparation for us talking today, and I thought, ooh, this is very coherent. You know, it's a bit like the web behind you. In a way, I realized that it is in context, the context of a much wider view than my own. I mean, I hope it reflects my own as well, but I suppose as you get older, and remember, I didn't start publishing until I was nearly 60, or being published, I should say, as Tony points out, seeing as it wasn't self-publication. You get a broader perspective. You can't help but see your own dot, if you like, in the landscape as part of all the other dots. And I guess it also, once you start writing about it, makes you realize that you do care about the ebb and flow of events and what happened and to whom. And you begin to see things in a way through other eyes, I hope.
Mm. Yes, and as you say, it is a very coherent book. And at the same time, every single poem can stand on its own. It doesn't need the others to prop it up. And indeed, quite a lot of them were published individually before we
Yes, they were, yes.
Put them between covers together and said, there you go, this is the definitive version. And I think probably it was the Don't Touch Garden, the long title poem that I heard first. And I think it was in the basement at the Poetry Society, and you had a band along as well, or somebody with a saxophone or something. There was some kind of music as well.
Oh, yeah.
And we were really late, and you'd reserved us seats right at the front, and it was really something very intense. And I was sitting there thinking, my goodness, this is incredible, and it's so long, and it all makes sense, and it all fits together. And how does she do that?
The Don't Touch Garden. Mum, why don't I look like you? An age before freezers, but my cucumber and tinned salmon tinkle with ice. Fresh from the bagwash, our Sunday cloth becomes Siberian. My father coughs, the cough that kills 30 years later. Not at the table, Jim. But you eat up. Good food, not for wasting. But it's got bones, Mum. Soft little white-blue spicules tasting of chalk. Eat. Safe, familiar battleground. Colluded victory. I eat. We both pretend I'm filled. Good food, a story hinted at, not told for her. Bread and marge dipped in her dad's rich gravy. A gobstopper fluffed with lint. Scrumped apples. And once a pickled herring up her drawers nicked from the corner shop. Later she laid places. Footmen, garden boys, housemaids. And like a massive liner coming over the rim of daylight, cook, for whom the bacon must be shaven pink and curly, the eggs' golden eyes shaded with a Gloire de Dijon lid. Maybe a little before this in time, again with my father. Red, yellow, orange, all run together, colours in the bagwash, our words the brightly painted ball between tin paws of a clockwork cat. The key in its back slows. Red, yellow segments show. My dad can't wait to turn the key, grabs the cat in his great fist, arcs it round the floor. He's in love with making me laugh. Better than grimly battled bottle and spoon, his hunger, mine, dissolves in fat chuckles, clockwork colours and wild chants. Nib and Nob, a tale of two bad mice, rickety-rackety Ramba, Bobby Bear, Mr. Page, he can't fool me, I know the code for words. Why do you hurt my mummy in the night? Why does she say, ah, Jim? His hands are still, his ears red-rimmed, their flaps are closed. No words, only a retinal scribble, burning where they've been. Burning like a yewberry in the sacred, shaggy, dark churchyard tree, chosen for its everlasting flame, the flame of his everlasting cigarette. His huge, delicate hands, things he wouldn't, things he couldn't say, must put a match to. Steady red lantern, fallen orange needle. My blistered memory cooled. Now all his quietness has become silence. And the next bit's my 5th birthday, which would have been just about before D-Day sometime. All the colour bled suddenly from the day. It had been haycock yellow, except in the green shadows where hens tumbled their sleepy vowels like sifted grain. Roses, soft as creamy butter on the back fence. Delphiniums, a tower of blue eyes fearlessly gazing at the sky. No sirens. Me in my new pink sundress, my mum leaning against the shelter's hot, corrugated side, and birthday cake for tea. Else, he's missing. Electric red hair squashed, a clippy hat, half moons of sweat, her grey summer uniform acrid with grief. Auntie Bella likes a good time. Now, payment's due. She wrenches at the afternoon clock. Put the hands back. Don't let it happen. God, I will be good. My Bert was good to me. Not in front of her. My mother takes her arm, moves her firmly down the path. Their voices murmur. Bella's rises, the sudden wild rain. Shh. Nothing must be named. Too late. Final as a siren or a bomb marking before and after. Somewhere in France and here, all the colour has bled from the day.
But of course, the first time I came across your poetry was when I was doing some minor support at Only Women Press, and
yes.
proof,
yes,
soft engineering.
Yeah.
And I think
I didn't know that. I mean, I probably did know it once, but I'd long forgotten it.
I learned a couple of words. There were a couple of words I thought that can't be right, and had to look them up. Oh, it is. Crizzled. I thought, what the heck is crizzled? Yeah. And found myself unconsciously quoting you in something I was writing later, and then going back to do some more proofing and thinking, oh, that's where I stole that from. Well, I can't use that then. So, you know, it's been a long relationship I've had with your poems before I'd even met you. And,
you know, I just didn't realise that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing.
Very possibly one of the reasons I decided to be a publisher. Don't know.
Wow.
It's certainly, it was one of the layers of, well, I know how to do this, that I fooled myself with. You know, all the things I thought I knew how to do. Oh my goodness. Yeah. My Father Counting Sheep would have been in that one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of my favourites, actually.
Yes. And it's such a loving and gentle poem. And you know, this thing about giving people permission to leave, and I'm getting incoherent at this point, but yes.
Let go, Jim.
Yes, exactly. And of course, the other thing is that you read your poetry so beautifully that you get in, as somebody on the receiving end, you get inside the poem in a really different way, because if I say you do the voices, it sounds as though we're doing something God blimey off the radio in the 40s, and that is not what I mean. But it's just the intonation of of everybody's individual voice is there in the poem, and when it's read aloud, you can hear it. And so that's kind of special.
You don't ever get to think all these things about yourself, and it's really rather nice to hear somebody else saying them.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And also, you know, to have made a practical difference to you,
Mm.
in that I was at least perhaps part of the impetus towards you becoming the publisher you are.
Absolutely.
And I'm
after the sort of the rage that started me thinking about it, the right, well, I'll do it myself sort of thing. I mean, I started thinking about the positive aspects as opposed to the entirely sort of fume and rage and stamp one's foot and, oh, well, it's something I can do with my second redundancy in 5 years sort of anger.
right.
And I thought, oh, maybe I could publish something by Kate. Now that would be fun, you know? And so it did. Yeah, and as I say, the layers of experience I'd had with your poetry, of, you know, really getting intimately involved in it and looking at it and exploring it, you know, proofing's an interesting thing, because on one level you're just looking for mistakes, but on the other level, I mean, I found it quite difficult to look for the mistakes because it kept drawing me in, and I was just reading it, and I had to sort of back off and be forensic. And one of the things about that was it made me realise the level of talent and expertise that I needed from people I was going to publish. It sort of gave me a sort of a benchmark for this is how good everything's got to be.
I can't do, well, I suppose I could do formal if I wanted to and tried, but I don't much. I've fallen into a kind of pattern of, I think it's somewhere between voice and music. I want the words to satisfy whatever it is in me that is satisfied by the music of other poets and music.
Yeah.
And I know when that's right, and mostly, and I try and replicate that on the page if I can.
Yeah.
I can imagine that if you were really good at it and you managed to import enough light and shade into the other bits so that the lines didn't come out like a hammer.
Yeah.
Hitting a nail on the head every so often, the rhymes, you know.
Yes.
That it could work. I mean, but I can imagine it working if you wrote a poem about a tube train or something like that.
Yeah.
Ba-dum.
Mind the gap.
Mind the gap. Yeah,
I mean, you could actually have fun with one of those. Maybe we should do that at some point. But let's talk about A Gift of Rivers, because we've talked at length about Dutch Garden on previous occasions, and it's on the website if people want to go and watch the 2 or 3 hours of video there is of me chatting to you about that. But we've not ever talked in depth about A Gift of Rivers. This actually started out as, was it a birthday present for Tony? Well,
it was, but I mean, what it was really, and I do remember vaguely, at any rate, this conversation, we said, it's about time there was a collection of poems about one's emergent gender and sexuality, and it's time there was a good lesbian poetry book. I mean, there probably are several, but nevertheless.
Yes, and we're not suggesting there aren't any, but time we had one.
had another one.
Yes.
And there's a sense in which it's a kind of organic follow-on to the Don't Touch Garden.
Yeah.
Certainly in my life, you know. And I hope it, I don't know, but I hope it's of some use, at any rate, in the way that poetry can be of use sometimes, to people who are unsure of who they are. And it's a kind of coming out, but without stridency, I think.
Yeah.
It's less of a coming out than I've arrived.
Yes, because it's sort of, it's very much a portrait, oh dear, I was going to say a portrait of a marriage, but that's been done, hasn't it? It's a portrait of the growth of a relationship.
Yes.
And you throwing your hat over the windmill lit and fig.
Literally, yes.
And say,
Lots of
right,
windmill
okay,
over
up in
there.
sticks, moving country, here I come.
Right. There we go.
Yeah, and just starting again. And the strength that takes and the confidence that you show in that relationship, that you take those risks at what, 70 at that point? How old were you then?
It was 97 that I went to Holland.
So how old were you then?
Very nearly 60.
Oh, right, yeah. So, yeah. So,
yes.
yeah. So quite a step.
Well, to end on a rather comic note, this poem is called Wives. Because we did it first in Amsterdam, you know, you lot were a long time after.
Is their anniversary this week?
Yes, 1st of April.
And it's not a joke.
Wives. There are not many wives of women yet, even in Amsterdam. You'd think, wouldn't you, that someone so careful of her image as me, and or so equable she doesn't need to be, like you, would be at least, if not politically correct, aware of the irony. That tragicomic state, stained bedsheets, barter and annexation. But we did the whole lot, except cake, and our wedding photos show the same raw, transparent grins as bridals do, and everyone cried at your brother's speech. And I, for one, am too tired after a lifetime of weights and measures to do more than crawl between our uxorious sheets for a little private poetry. So, wife, whose wife I am, be pleased by this title made innocent by the kindly burghers of Amsterdam.
It's all about the forward looking and this is wonderful and this is exciting, and then it's into the almost the everyday of living in Holland and being married to a Dutch woman and getting on with it. You know, just you know, the sort of being brought coffee in the morning and going out for walks in the local park and making friends with the dogs and all the rest of it. And it's so very. There is nothing extraordinary about this at the same time as it's extraordinary. You know, it's just, well, this is where I started from, so it's entirely normal to me, and you can just get on with it, really. And which is why there's no banner waving. Tempting though that might be at times. And you know, it's.
Well, I think I'd waved all my banners by then, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you don't get to 60 and trundle off to another country with a woman if you haven't waved your banners earlier and sorted out the kind of angst and whatever. And no mistake, it was there at the time to be done, to be sorted.
Yeah.
But, you know, here we are. Next week I'm 82.
Yay.
And stuck in England.
Stuck in England, yes. Thank you, COVID. Yeah.
Well, foot more than COVID.
Foot as well, yes. Initially COVID and then falling downstairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this book has done very well. We're almost out. I think
really good.
We've got about 20 copies left. So if anybody wants to buy one, do it quickly.
How many did you print? How many did you print?
300, I think.
Right.
Around there, anyway.
So it's been a little earner. That's good.
Yes, it's done nicely, and I get feedback about this book. You know, often people will buy a book from us, and you never hear anything back from them. But people email me when they finish reading this and say, "Gosh, I enjoyed that book."
Really?
Absolutely, I love that. Have I not, I'm sure I passed one of those on to you that was particularly fulsome. But
I
yeah.
never think of anybody ever reading it, you know. I'm so pleased they do. Because it isn't, you do it to communicate. You don't do it just to write poetry and indulge yourself in an art form. You do it because you're speaking to people somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, yes, it's got a beautiful cover that might make people pick it up, but like, they're not going to take it home and display the cover. They're going to read it, Kate.
Yeah.
Really. Trust me, they are.
But are any of the comments not from the lesbian community, but from people who aren't in it?
Well, I don't know that because they don't
necessarily
tell me, and if I don't know them personally, then
yeah,
can't tell you.
But I mean, it's not an apostolic book. It's not out there with the trumpet saying "join us."
No, and also, nor is it for the lesbian community. It's for
not really
everybody, but us in particular.
Yes,
and you know, because plenty of people throw everything up and move countries to be with the person they love. So there's plenty to relate to.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we did make the decision to sort of dip into your other poems that were about relationships and growing up and being aware of who you were.
Yeah.
I suppose it's probably slightly more than half of the book is before you even meet Toddy, isn't it?
Yes, some of it. Yes, I'm looking at. Yes, really, it's.
I think Jailbreaks.
I don't know whether I did this or you did or we did it together, but it's again, it's a sequence, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, catechisms goes back to school days.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if you've got anything from the Silver Rembrandt in
here. Yes, there's a bit from the Silver Rembrandt.
Oh. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a sort of a looking back and then a looking forward, and around this pivot of everything changes now. And very much looking forward, right through to, and when I'm dead, you know, how am I going to judge myself, really? And the absolute Tonyism in that one of, where is it?
What are we looking at? Sorry.
To the Field of Reeds.
Oh yes.
Ever since I said I'm a liar and a coward, and you said, yes, but I love you.
Yeah.
I thought, that is so Tony. So she's not going to let you get away with beating yourself up. So, just put that to one side, Kate. Let's just get on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tony's a lovely woman. Yeah, lucky cow.
Yes, she is. She's in the garden somewhere, gardening away. So,
as I would expect. I bet your garden's looking amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it's looking a bit shaggy, even with her ministrations, but it's nice shaggy. And actually, it's wonderful for me because when I've been kind of grounded with my foot up, I can look out of the window and I can see hollyhocks and irises and ash trees on the horizon and a big hedge and an enormous rosemary bush. And, it's like being outside.
Yeah.
Almost.
Almost, yes.
Yeah.
So, are you working on anything at the moment?
I'm trying to. I mean, I have got some new poems, yes. And I'm trying to be disciplined enough to go through the list of poems that haven't been published that I've written perhaps before, and see which of them are worth publishing. And the shape that seems to be taking is that there's quite a lot of eco poetry in it,
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot about where we are now and what we're doing to the planet and that kind of thing. So I don't know, we'll see.
Mm.
I've got a title.
Okay, and the title is?
Saved the Cloud.
I like it. That's good.
I mean, I noticed two things, and one of them is that there is much more emphasis and understanding and flag waving, really, about the earth and what's happening to it. And people are beginning to wake up. But on the other hand, there's a very, very strong right-wing swing. You know, this whole Black Lives Matters has brought out so many things from the woodwork.
Hasn't it just?
Weren't very evident or so evident before. But I worry about how you've got to shout to make your voice heard, because I don't think anybody really hears shouting. And yeah,
it's been so lovely in lockdown because we're on a direct flight path. And there not being any planes for ages was wonderful.
I bet. You get loads of butterflies.
Yes, we've got loads of butterflies.
What masses.
Yeah.
Masses.
Well, I mean, of course, your garden will bring them in anyway.
But our neighbours printed along the hedge outside a whole row of lavender. And there must have been 100 meadow browns on it.
Wow. Now that really is a lot. No, when I said a lot, I mean more than 2 or 3. That's amazing.
No, this is really absolutely alive.
Clouds of them.
It was like a kind of miniature autumn with leaves flowing down.
Wonderful.
It was great. And I didn't take a photograph. Haha. Oh well.
Never mind.
But
you know it was there.
Yes.
It's lovely to talk to you.
And you. And yeah, many thanks.